Lively, outgoing, vengeful female lead sensitive, loyal dog, wolf dog male lead, accidentally falling in love on the road to wealth. Young Zhen is an optimist. Although he grew up in a welfare institution, he has always been positive and upward. Heart disease, but life should not end, crossing into a great pity. How should she pull her sister up in a family where she has lived together for 3 generations but is surrounded by tigers and wolves? How will she engage in intellectual battles with her vampire family? How will she get rich? Will she find her own world? Let's see how little peasant women can turn themselves around and become rich, fight for their rights and interests, and all roads lead to Rome. Chapter 1. Ghost Place. You are listening at novel FUL. Audio. In December, there was flying snow and dense black clouds. A thick layer of snow had accumulated on the ground, and everything was quiet. The withered branches on the nearby hillside were swaying wildly in the wind. Young Zhen's heart was pounding violently due to his sudden collapse, causing trembling pain from his ankles, forehead, and even his internal organs. Young Zhen opened her eyes and looked blankly at the white expanse in front of her. There were gravel and dead branches under her body, which made her feel pain. This is what the hell place. She just had some inspiration in the studio, and when her heart was beating violently, she quickly stopped her work. However, she didn't expect to faint as soon as her hand touched the door handle. Memories that did not belong to her flooded in like a tide, and the visuals flashed frame by frame like a movie. She actually crossed over. Wearing it on a peasant girl of the same name and surname who was 18 years old in ancient times. At the age of 10, both parents passed away, and my younger sister, who had just turned 1 year old, was driven back to the Yang family by my uncle. From then on, I lived a life where pigs and dogs were inferior. Due to the intense competition among bizarre family members, she has developed a reserved and timid personality. Despite this, she loves her sister who has relied on each other since childhood very much. The reason why sisters went up the mountain this time was that they didn't have enough to eat in the big winter. They heard that hunters in the same village said they could hunt rabbits and pheasants in the mountain, so they cut 2 sticks and went up the Yangchang mountain at the end of the village alone in the cold wind. Sheep Intestine Mountain, as its name suggests, is known for its rugged terrain. It was originally malnourished for years, with a yellow and emaciated face. In addition, the snowy road was slippery, and before they could find any prey, they stepped on it and fell off the slope. And modern Yang Zhen, due to congenital heart disease, accidentally crossed over. Watching the sky gradually getting late and snowflakes falling again, Yang Zhen tried to get up, but repeatedly fell. The piercing pain in her ankle made her unable to stand steadily. Hot blood fell down my cheeks into the snow, looking eerie and beautiful. If the house leaks, it will rain continuously at night. She won't just die once, will she die again? Help. Is there anyone there? Help. Yang Zhen couldn't help but shout at the top of her throat, unwilling to think too much. I don't know how long she shouted, but the last light in the sky had disappeared and her throat was hoarse. She was cold and painful, grabbed a handful of snow and stuffed it into her mouth, continuing to shout. Boss. The sound seems to be coming from below. Go down and take a look. Yang Zhen saw the flames flickering rapidly, and in no time, the 3 of them landed steadily, splashing snow under their feet. Help me, hero. I am from Yangjiazhuang. I accidentally fell here while hunting in the mountains, and my ankle was injured and I cannot move. Yang Zhen explained the reason like a bean. As if hearing something interesting, one of them sneered and said, "There's no prey on a snowy day." But the words abruptly came to an end. A man took a step forward and squatted in front of Yang Zhen. He pressed Yang Zhen's ankle hard with his hand, causing her to make a pig-like hissing sound in pain. Not broken. The voice was deep. I really didn't lie to you. I really can't move anymore. Yang Zhen listened to the person's words, raised her hand to wipe the dried blood on her face, and quickly explained. She was worried that this person might suspect her and not save her, and she would definitely die. The man's gaze was full of scrutiny, as if judging whether her words were true or false. At this moment, Zhen took advantage of the flickering light to see the man in front of him clearly. His sword eyebrows and starry eyes were impressive, and his tall nose bridge was particularly prominent. He was wearing a black dark patterned robe and a cloak of the same color. At first glance, it's not from the countryside. Zhen's eyes were eager and met the man's dark eyes. Just as Zhen was about to lose in despair, the man let go and said, "Take her." After speaking, with a little tiptoe, I easily jumped up the mountain slope. There were still two people in front of me, looking at each other. One person tacitly handed the torch to the other and said, "This lady, I have offended you." Zhen instantly took off and was carried up the mountain slope. 3 panting horses stopped on the slope, with 2 of them carrying cages on their backs. Tang Jingqing had already mounted his horse, and Nanqing glanced at Guiyun. Holding the person in his hand, he felt a bit confused and said, "Boss." Tang Jingqing lowered his eyes slightly, as if pondering for a moment before speaking calmly, "Let me go immediately." Nanqing and Guiyun exchanged a tacit glance. The leader had a serious obsession with cleanliness, and it was unexpected that they would let go at this moment. However, the two dared not speak too much, and together they put the woman who couldn't see her face clearly on the leader's horse, quickly flipping over and getting on the horse. As the new year approaches, organized and premeditated cases of trafficking in women have emerged in various regions, causing panic among the people. Local governors have submitted letters requesting the emperor to issue a thorough investigation. The 6 gates are the institutions directly under the emperor and are ordered to investigate cases. They followed the clues to Qizhuang, the easternmost point of Yangshi prefecture, but the clues were broken, so they had to rush back overnight with the existing clues. He thought it was a simple case of trafficking, and the local government was unable to pursue it. But he has been facing repeated resistance since leading the investigation for half a month. He ordered someone to investigate the records of leaving and entering the city, and checked the Qin and Chu pavilions in various places, but did not find anything suspicious. Only then did he realize that there were many things involved. How could a considerable number of young women disappear for nothing? He went out of the city to explore secretly, but on the way, he met her. Judging from the miserable situation of that woman, even he, who has always been cautious and thoughtful, would not doubt anyone. The horse's back was bumpy, and the cold wind howled, causing pain in Zhen's cheeks. The person in front of him deliberately kept a distance, only a slight warmth came from him. Zhen remained calm and gently tugged at the person's cloak, trying to resist some of the cold. Tang Jingqing tried to pull back his cloak, but to no avail, he only casually thought. "Throw away this cloak when going back." Zhen found his original home according to his vague memory. The sound of hooves and hissing woke up the sleeping Yang family, and they put on their clothes and went out one after another. Yang Yu in the room had been waiting for Zhen to come home. When she heard the commotion outside, she didn't even have time to wear shoes. She came out barefoot to check and looked at Zhen, whose face was covered in blood after being taken off the horse. She burst into tears. Tang Jingqing had long legs and strong strength. He lifted Zhen off his horse and lowered his head into the room. The candlelight in the room was dim, and Zhen looked bewildered and stunned. Tang Jingqing clearly didn't expect her living conditions to be worse than he thought, so he pursed his lips slightly. Rather than being a house, it's more like a miscellaneous room or a firewood room. The room is small in size, with miscellaneous items piled up underground and no household items, making it difficult to get down. The walls around it are scattered, revealing sections of dry grass. The only window is whistling and leaking air. The rough workmanship of the haystack is covered with a thin mattress, and the nasal cavity is filled with a choking and unpleasant smell. The begging conditions may be even better than this. Tang Jingqing suddenly uttered this sentence in his mind. Tang Jingqing glanced at the woman sitting on the haystack, staring blankly. He turned around and was about to leave. He was not a compassionate person, and rescuing the injured woman and taking her home was considered an exception. Ah, Nai. Please. Please hire a doctor for our sister. She has shed a lot of blood. Please. The childish cry echoed in Yang Zhen's ear, causing Tang Jingqing to stop. You useless thing. What kind of doctor are you hiring? It's been unlucky enough for our family to only rely on you two losers over the years. If we still want money, we don't even have a chance. If she's tough, she won't die naturally, but if she's unlucky, it's easier to die. The speaker's voice was a bit sharp, but he couldn't help but see death. Chapter 2. Medical Treatment. You are listening at Novel FUL. Audio. Yang Zhen frowned, so fierce. Are these relatives? At least she broke her bones and tendons. Although she didn't go out to work and earn money, she was responsible for all the household chores, big and small, all in vain. Without credit, it could be considered hard work seeing his life-saving benefactor turn around again. Yang Zhen quickly raised a self-proclaimed impeccable smile and said, "Thank you very much for saving me. I have no way to repay you." After all, her family was in dire straits, and he had also seen the situation. She couldn't have said some nerve-wracking words about being a cow and a horse to make a promise. Tang Jingqing watched as the woman's face turned red and swollen, and the wound on her forehead had stopped bleeding. Her almond eyes were full of helplessness and confusion, but he still forced a smile. For some reason, he inexplicably took 2 pieces of silver from his waistband and placed them next to her, then turned around and left. Oh my goodness. She has been doing good deeds for 22 years, even though she was abandoned by her parents in a welfare home due to congenital heart disease. She has always been kind and upward, and has never done anything outrageous. Why did God make such a big joke on her? Yang Zhen looked around, wanting to cry without tears. Other people's travels are all space spiritual spring golden fingers, she doesn't have them. What should we do? Hope is a dream, and nightmares don't matter. She twisted her thigh hard. It's not a dream, sister. I'm scared to death. What if Grandma doesn't hire a doctor? Woo-woo. Don't have anything to do, woo-woo. The thin and small little girl's face was also red and swollen, crying as she rushed into Yang Zhen's arms. This is the younger sister of the original body, named Yang Yu. She is 8 years old and has relied on her since childhood. She is sensible and makes people feel heartbroken. It's late at night, and a few barks of dogs can be heard in the distance. I think those 3 people rode horses and left. Yang Zhen gently stroked the little girl's back and pretended to be relaxed, saying, I just scraped my skin and sprained my foot. It's too late now. When it's light, we'll go see a doctor. The little girl in her arms looked up, her big watery eyes flickering, and carefully examined Yang Zhen in front, back, left, and right. She confirmed that the wound was not bleeding, and there were no other wounds before she stopped crying. Deng Deng ran to get the wet handkerchief and knelt in front of Yang Zhen, gently wiping away the blood stains on her face. Yang Zhen finally saw the little girl's appearance clearly. She was wearing a simple double bun, which was already a bit messy. My face and lips were cracked from the cold, and I was wearing a black cotton jacket and pants that didn't fit well. It was still relatively clean, and my eyes were still foggy at this moment. How pitiful. Yang Yu helped Yang Zhen lie down and pulled a blackened blanket from the corner of the wall. After covering Yang Zhen tightly, she also got into the blanket, sobbed for a while, and then let out a shallow breath before falling asleep. Yang Zhen propped up her body, blew out the candles, and listened to the howling cold wind outside, making it difficult to fall asleep. The disparity in conditions and physical pain, as well as the anxiety and unease in the unfamiliar new environment, filled her brain. She slowly received the memories of the original owner. This village is called Yangjiazhuang, and it is the largest village within a radius of several tens of miles. In addition to the people surnamed Yang in this village, there are also many outsiders who have come from other places over the years. The village is not far from the capital, only 20 miles away, and it can be reached in 2 hours. If you take a car or horse, you can save a lot of time. Yangshi Prefecture has 7 counties under its jurisdiction, and Yangjiazhuang has a unique geographical location. Although it belongs to Yaogang County, it is closer to the prefecture. The ancestor of the Yang family once served as a small official and was considered wealthy. Later on, there was no more scholar among the younger generation, so they could only rely on the heavens to eat with their backs to the earth. Until the generation of his original third uncle, he seemed to be a student at a young age. 3 years ago, he was admitted as a child student and even became a teacher in a private school in the village. It was not until then that the Yang family became a prominent and prestigious family in the village, and everyone in the village gave way to the Yang family. The homestead under the shade of our ancestors, coupled with a large number of male children in our family, is also divided into many fields. Just Yongye field alone has dozens of acres, which can be considered a wealthy family in the village. The Yang family lived together for 3 generations, and Mr. Yang's name was Yang Liye. He married the Zhao family and had 3 sons. Yang Zhongren, the eldest son, married the Lu family from another village and had a son named Yang Song. At the age of 3, he had a fever that burned his brain and became a madman. He is now 20 years old and has not yet married. The second son, also known as his original father, was named Yang Zhongyi. At the age of 15, he went to work as a clerk at a rice shop in the county town, self-taught accounting, and married a rice shop owner named Queen. He had Yang Zhen and Yang Yu, but Wang was weak from a young age and suffered from reproductive injuries. During his medical treatment, he encountered a landslide and both of them died, leaving only Yang Zhen, who was 10 years old, and Yang Yu, who had just turned 1 year old. It has been almost 8 years since then. Yang Zhongli, the third son, is the only child in this village. He married Qian, the daughter of an old scholar from the neighboring village. He has a son named Yang Shu, who is 6 years old and has already started his education. The old and young in the family treated Yuan Shen and Yang Yu badly. They were short of food and clothing. They did all the housework. The work of sweeping, carrying water, feeding pigs and chickens, washing clothes and farming was done by sisters all the year round. Yang Yu searched for the heat source and crawled into Yang Zhen's arms, snorting. Yang Zhen thought and couldn't come up with a reason, so he fell asleep in a daze. The rooster crowed 3 times, and Yang Zhen opened her eyes. Yesterday's events seemed like a dream, and she woke up for a while before accepting the fact of her time travel. The first thing that comes to mind is how to survive in this unfamiliar era, and if possible, live well. She cherished her little life very much, and her first thing was to see a doctor. Shaking my ankle and neck, it no longer hurts, only my cheeks and forehead are slightly sore. There is nothing to shine on in the room, and the layer of water in the copper basin in the corner has frozen. A chill emanated from the haystack below, and the door opened with a snap. In came a short woman with a round waist and thick back. Yang Yu sat up with one bone, spreading her arms like an old hen, blocking in front of Yang Zhen. The woman looked up and down at her, then glanced at Yang Zhen lying down, spitting out the melon seed skin. She wore a simple bun, with a faded old velvet flower inserted, and was dressed in a washed white cotton jacket and pants, faintly revealing that the original color was blue. Damn girl! What are you fooling about? Get up quickly and feed the pigs. Otherwise, you'll have to drink the northwest wind during the Chinese New Year. Auntie. Sister A is injured. Shouldn't you just scratch your skin a bit? Don't be sneaky or slippery. Hurry up. The woman rudely spat out the raw melon seed skin on the ground, gouged out the 2 of them, and turned around to walk out of the leaking room on all sides. Yang Zhen's eyes were slightly cold. Sister, rest well, I'm going to feed the pig now. The little girl rubbed her sleepy eyes and said in a muffled voice before getting up. Young Zhen saw that the little girl's hands were covered in chilblains, so he grabbed her and gently shook his head. Let's go together. Yang Zhen got off the haystack and put on his thin cloth shoes. Sister. Yang Yu hesitated a bit, but sister was still injured. Yang Zhen couldn't let a little girl go out to work on a snowy day. Following her body instincts, she skillfully picked up the bamboo basket at the door and said, let's go. Yang Yu didn't persist anymore, took 2 steps at a time, and gently held Yang Zhen's hand. Yang Zhen was stunned for a moment, but also gently returned his grip. Yang Zhen is not unfamiliar with children. She grew up in an orphanage in her past life and often goes back to visit the children in the orphanage after graduation and work, and gets along very well. Yang Zhen carried the broken silver the person had left last night in his arms and went to the house of the village doctor. The doctor bandaged Yang Zhen's wound and saw the bamboo basket behind her. He said earnestly, if you hurt your head, you should rest and not work hard. Yang Zhen smiled and thanked, could you please help me and my sister take a look at this chilblain? Is there any treatment available? This chilblain. The doctor twisted his short beard and pondered for a moment. It's not difficult to treat, but the wound is already on the verge of ulceration. It will take some time. Yang Zhen hurriedly said, as long as it can be cured without damaging the skin, what are you afraid of after spending some time? The doctor nodded and said, then I'll prescribe a few pairs of ointment for you. Apply it once a day in the morning and evening, and remember not to get wet. It's best not to get cold, and avoid going out and getting wind in cold weather. Throughout history, doctors and parents have always been nagging and admonishing. Thank you very much. Yang Zhen thanked the doctor, paid the diagnosis fee, and then led his sister away. The biggest fear of chilblains is getting cold, but to keep warm this winter, they need to start a fire. According to their current living conditions, not to mention starting a fire, they cannot even keep warm in daily life. It's a big fortune telling if they don't die. Chapter 3. Family Situation. You are listening at Novel FUL. Audio. Sister. Where did you get the money? Yang Yu was curious and a little uneasy. All the silver in the family is managed by Nai, and it is as important as her eyeballs. How could she be kind enough to show them harm? In addition, the sisters also suffered from frostbite in the past winter. When it warms up in the next spring, it will scab and heal. Why spend money? Yang Zhen gently shook Yang Yu's swollen little hand and said, you don't need to worry about these things. You just need to remember that Sister A will make you live a good life. Yang Yu's eyes were slightly red, and she nodded hard, quietly glancing at Yang Zhen. After Sister A returned last night, she had become somewhat different. Sister A used to treat her well, but she rarely said so much to her. Now, Sister A would say anything to her, and she felt that she was not so useless. She was overjoyed by the change and tightly grasped Yang Zhen's hand with her back. Wild vegetables. Lu pulled down the bamboo basket on Yang Zhen's back and saw that it was empty inside, with a fierce expression on her face. They can't pick wild vegetables, so she has to go pick them. In this snowy day, it's hard to freeze people to death. I didn't find it, Yang Zhen said as she was about to enter the room. Stop. Who taught you how to be big or small? You have no reason not to dig wild vegetables. Lu's shirt tugged at a basket and nearly pulled the sisters to the ground. Yang Zhen stood still and hid Yang Yu behind her, his eyes sharp as he looked at Lu's shirt. My parents passed away early, so naturally no one taught us etiquette. Uncle and aunt are so young that they don't remember anything. You. Lu Shi was so angry at her words that she blew her beard and stared at her. This little hoof dared to talk back. Also, I think Auntie is very capable of finding wild vegetables in the icy and snowy world. So, let's just keep our eyes open and let Auntie give us a try. After speaking, disregarding Lu's jumping, he pulled Yang Yu into the house and locked the door latch. Yang Yu's eyes sparkled with stars, some admiring her, while others worried. "Sister, you've angered Auntie. Aren't you afraid of Auntie scolding you?" Yang Zhen chuckled lightly and said, "People are good to us, and we are also good to them." "That's right. Those who love others will always love them. Since the elders do not care for the younger generation, why should the younger generation respect them? She has always been a person who weighs the pros and cons. For those who are good to her, she will double the benefits, and for those who are not good to her, she will not let the other party take advantage. Sister, breakfast seems to be ready. It's the taste of steamed buns." Yang Yu suddenly swallowed 2 mouthfuls of water and said, "Then let's go eat." The sisters ran to the hall hand in hand. Inside the bamboo-woven frame on the table was a rough steamed bun, emitting hot air. Except for Zhao, who was busy on the stove, and Lu, who was helping, everyone else eagerly sat at the table. Lu brought out the meal and rolled his eyes hard when he saw Yang Zhen. Yang Zhen turned a blind eye and pulled Yang Yu to sit on the chair at the corner of the table. Zhao wiped her hands neatly on her collar, sat down, and said, "Let's eat." The voice was very familiar, and Yang Zhen looked up at her quietly. The old woman's gray hair was meticulously and neatly combed behind her head, with an unfriendly light shining in her hanging eyes. A table full of people wolfed down their meals. The bowl was a paste of corn, with a few pieces of dried vegetable leaves floating on it. The paste had no taste, and the steamed bun tugged at her throat. Even though Yang Zhen had experienced hardships, she found this kind of food difficult to swallow. She secretly looked up and glanced around, and everyone was eating quietly. The room was only filled with the sound of wheezing and chopsticks colliding with the bowl. Eat it. Between being difficult to eat and starving to death, she chose to live. When she finally made up her mind to pick up her bowl, the people at the table had already put down their bowls with a snap. The old woman stood up and, without saying a word, reached out and snatched away the mess and clumps from Yang Zhen's hand. "What's wrong? My head is knocked out. I've forgotten all the rules of the old Yang family." Yang Zhen looked bewildered and said, Yang Yu cast a sympathetic gaze at her. On his desk mate, a tall young man clapped his hands, but his expression was like that of a child. At this moment, he was grinning and his mouth was dimly lit. Forget. Forget. Oh my. Mom. Don't be angry. Even if you don't eat a meal, you won't starve to death. You'll have a long memory for the next meal. Lu happily tidied up the dishes. "Yeah, don't be angry, Mom. I think you just got injured and your appetite is not good." A young woman with a delicate appearance advised her, but her face was full of a theatrical expression. "Humph." The old woman turned around and entered the stove. Yang Zhen glanced around and roughly matched the people at the table one by one. The old man with deep wrinkles on his face, who immediately started smoking dry cigarettes as soon as he put down his rice bowl, was his former grandfather Yang Liye. The person who is not very affectionate and has a sharp tongue is her original grandmother Zhao. Judging from her personality, she can probably guess who is in charge of this family. The man who looked simple, rough, and silent was the original uncle Yang Zhongren. Sitting next to him with a silly expression on his face was the original cousin Yang Song, and the original uncle's mother Lu Shi helped clean up the dishes. Sitting together happily, the couple, who were studying the 3-character classic with a sturdy little boy, looked slightly more dignified in their attire. They were probably the original 3 uncles, Yang Zhongli, Qian Shi, and Yang Shu. Yang Zhen had nothing to say, standing idly by and carrying a spear between his words. However, since the heavens have given her a new life, she will definitely cherish it well. She can also understand encountering some strange relatives. After all, a person's luck energy is conserved, and she cannot take advantage of everything good in no time. Snowflakes drifted up again in the sky. "All right. If you have nothing to do, go back to your own room. You go fetch water. The old lady patted the board again and gestured to Yang Zhen, while the others remained silent. Yang Zhen pointed to himself with his finger and said, "Am I? Who else can it be if it's not you? Don't pretend to be foolish. Wild vegetables haven't been dug up in the morning, and pigs are still hungry." Lu stirred the fire. Yang Zhen laughed angrily and said, "Is uncle and uncle sick? Bold. I think you're the one with a broken brain. How dare you talk to your elders like this?" Zhao patted the table and stood up. "Why else would you let me, an injured weak woman, carry water? I think my body should be stronger than uncle and third uncle." Yang Zhongren blushed with embarrassment and silently picked up the burden and bucket from the corner of the wall to fetch water. Lu Shi didn't hold on to her husband and gave Yang Zhen a fierce glare, then pulled the drooling Yang Song back into the room. Yang Zhen, who had just arrived, still felt a faint pain in her head, coupled with not having enough to eat and the cold wind blowing hard. She felt like a little cabbage in the field, and a sense of sadness arose. Sigh. I was anxious just now and didn't look carefully. Now I have the time to carefully observe this courtyard. The yard is quite large and clean. In addition to the main house where we had dinner earlier, there are 4 green brick houses arranged in an L shape, each with independent entrance and exit doors. Next to the door is a pigsty, chicken coop, and a dilapidated miscellaneous room, where she and Yang Yu currently live. There are also 2 humming pigs in the pigsty. Among these 4 rooms, there is one belonging to the original father. After the parents got married, they all went to the shop in the father-in-law's house in the city to help, but rarely came back. That room was used as a study for Yang Zhongli. When it comes to the degree to which the Yang family values the third house, it can be said that they have spared no effort in their efforts. The whole family is young and hard-working, with a lot of food left except for taxes. However, the whole family is meticulous and even stingy, saving money to support Yang Zhongli, hoping that he can pass the imperial examination. In the current situation, we cannot expect our family members to have a conscience and return the house to them. We can only think of another way to retrieve the house. Chapter 4. Compassion. You are listening at novelfull.audio. She must have lived in this home where no one asked about the temperature and hunger for a while. When she became capable, she left with her sister. Yang Zhen was growling with hunger, and Yang Yu looked at her with some concern. Yang Zhen poked his head and looked at the stove from the window. The stove was already locked. I had no choice but to smile at Yang Yu with relief, change the subject, wipe my hands clean, and apply a thick layer of ointment to their faces and hands. During this period, someone urged Yang Zhen to work, and Yang Zhen simply pretended to be dead. No matter how people outside jumped or cursed, Yang Zhen would give them a cold shoulder. Others take a step back in the vastness of the sea and the sky, while the Yang family and others take a step back in the face. Since they don't want her to feel better, she has no reason to make them feel at ease. Yang Zhen taught Yang Yu to beat the 8-section brocade twice before her body warmed up. After jumping around all day, I can finally lie down quietly. Yang Zhen pondered what to do next. Although the Yang family was a manor household, everyone was carrying their own little tricks and calculating shrewdly. She couldn't be a lamb to be slaughtered, and she could see that besides herself and Yang Yu, the only ones left were a loving family. Zhao treated Yuan Shen and her younger sister so harshly, firstly because Yuan Shen's father Yang Zhongyi didn't stay at home often after getting married. Some villagers had long tongues and chatter at the Yang family had adopted a son-in-law for the city people. In this era of patriarchy, such words undoubtedly shamed the Yang family and threw them on the ground to trample on. Due to these idle words, Yuan Shen's father and wife believed that their second son was not promising and that they had forgotten their mother after marrying a wife, so they didn't treat their second son Yang Zhongyi. Secondly, Zhao prioritized sons over daughters. The women in the family acted like cows and horses, but the men were treated as golden knots and offered up. They kept their original bodies until they were 18 years old and unmarried. It was purely because Zhao wanted to wait for Yang Yu to grow older and work independently, sell her original bodies for a good price, so that she could help her foolish grandson find a wife. These unwritten rules are well understood by the Yang family. She cannot sit idly by, only when she is unprepared can she be attacked. Silver money is something that comes close to her body. Apart from a little money given by that person, she doesn't have a single penny on her body now. She originally studied design, had painting skills, and knowledge reserves. However, in this era, pens, ink, paper, and inkstones are luxury items, and she can't afford them at all. She can only think of other ways. Meow, 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 meow. A soft meow came from outside the door. On a snowy day, where did the little pitiful come from? I hope it can find something to eat and endure this winter. If she had the conditions, she would definitely do her best to help, but now, she herself is a mud bodhisattva crossing the river. Zhen remembered her cat, which was an injured stray cat she had picked up in the middle of the road. She was also very conflicted at the time. The newborn kitten was restless on the road, and the roaring cars made her tremble with fear. In the end, she couldn't bear it and carried the dying little one back. She spent a little 10,000 yuan to cure the little one. The little one was completely black and seemed to understand human nature, named Yuanbao. Yuanbao provided her with great companionship and comfort when she struggled to start a business alone. I hope the dean's mother can help her take care of Yuanbao. Meow 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 meow. The cat's meow outside the window became urgent. Yang Zhen reached out to cover her ears, afraid that she would soften her heart. Previously, she had been a volunteer at a stray animal rescue station. She seemed to have a naturally soft heart and couldn't bear to see cats and dogs suffer. Now that she was in a difficult situation, how could she still have the ability to save a small life? Meow, meow, meow. According to today's brief interaction, the whole family of 10 people, except for Xiao Yangyu, who trusts and relies on her wholeheartedly, are not easy to get along with. How to survive in such a home surrounded by tigers and wolves is a problem. Meow, meow, meow. Okay. How much can a cat eat? If it's not good enough, even if it stutters, you can give it some soup to drink. It starts to snow in the evening, and if it's not lucky, it may not be able to endure tonight. Yang Zhen tucked in the corner of Xiao Yangyu's bed and obediently put on his shoes as he walked out the door. A thick layer of snow has accumulated in the yard. In the pure white snow, there is a dark kitten walking deep and shallow in the snow. Because it is too small and the snow is too thick, it finds it extremely difficult to walk. Yang Zhen walked over against the cold wind and lifted it with one hand, about the size of his palm. Looking around, she didn't find any other traces. She speculated that it might be the mother cat who brought the kitten. Although the room is leaking, it's better than nothing. Yang Zhen pulled a piece of rag from the corner of the wall and wiped the snow off its body. The little one trembled with cold and kept smashing its mouth. Based on Yang Zhen's experience of raising cats, he knew that the little one was hungry. But this room is just so big, where is their food? Yang Zhen carefully placed the kitten on his sleeping side and went out to find something to eat. As I passed by the chicken coop, a glimmer of inspiration appeared. I reached out and touched an egg. Yang Zhen knocked open a small hole in the egg, poured the egg liquid into his palm, and the little kitten started licking it with a rustling sound until it was almost finished before stopping. Yang Zhen knew that an egg could cause a big uproar in this family. After quickly disposing of the eggshell, she stuffed the kitten into her arms and climbed onto the haystack. She didn't sleep soundly during this night, reality and dreams intertwined, making it difficult for her to understand the truth, falsehood, and reality. The stiff blanket hardly keeps warm, and the frostbite on the hands and feet gives off an unbearable itching. Who killed $1,000 and stole my eggs? I can't feed you 3 meals a day, you greedy people. How dare you steal my eggs? Because it was near the chicken house, Yang Zhen's sisters were awakened by the loud voice. Yang Zhen sighed in his heart, and sure enough. Get up and give the little kitten in your arms to little Yang Yu, look at it, don't come out. Ah Nai. What's going on? You've been so angry so early. Yang Zhen asked knowingly, as the farmer leaned against the door frame with an innocent expression. She just looked at the thick snow, her footprints had already been covered up, so she had no fear. Zhao didn't give her a good face. With a calm expression, she looked at her suspiciously and said, "Did you steal an egg?" Zhao's words made her feel very reasonable. Ah Nai, I bumped into you yesterday. You punished me for not eating, that's what I deserve. But eggs are so precious, how dare I steal them? Don't charge me for it, maybe it's a night owl stealing them. Yang Zhen felt aggrieved, as if she was about to cry and defend herself. Zhao was wondering if this dead girl had knocked her head off, as if she had changed her personality. Could it be that her brain had been knocked out? Before, she couldn't utter a single word for half a day, stuttered, couldn't fight back, scolded or even retorted, making her dare not go west or east. If you don't believe me, I'll call everyone up and let's find evidence together. As soon as the words fell, before Zhao could react, Yang Zhen had changed his aggrieved demeanor and ran over, knocking on the door with a clang. Uncle. Aunt. Get up. Third uncle. Third auntie. Get up. Yang Zhen's hand was hurting when he slapped the door, and the whole family walked out with sleepy eyes. At this moment, the sky is not yet bright and it is time to sleep soundly. It is inevitable to be disturbed and unhappy. Chapter 5. Yang Zhen is weak and endless. You are listening at novelfull.audio. What's going on? Yang Zhongli gathered his clothes together, his face gloomy and impatient. Third uncle. Ah Nai said she lost an egg last night and suspected someone was stealing it. She asked me to wake everyone up and look for the eggshells. We must find the egg thief. Yang Zhen stood behind Zhao, with a strong and spirited expression. Zhao was a bit strange when she heard these words, and she didn't think of a rebuttal for a moment. Mom. Our family is not so poor that we can't afford to open the pot. Did you even throw away an egg and call us all up? Zhongli studied her homework until midnight last night, and she just slept soundly. Qian couldn't bear her mother-in-law's petty behavior, so she even went to great lengths to save an egg. Her voice was not loud, and her tone was quite heartfelt for her husband. The couple in the big room looked drowsy and hadn't had a chance to speak yet. Well, it's just that I didn't think it carefully. Let's all go inside and sleep. Zhao said, and everyone went back to the room. The incident of losing an egg was also over. Yang Zhen could also catch a glimpse from her brief contact with the Zhao family. Zhao managed to manage the expenses of the whole family, and was a bit too calculating. However, from her attire and appearance, she was also a person who cared more about face. Therefore, Zhao was a typical person who wanted face to suffer. She couldn't have caused a commotion in the family over a small egg, nor could anyone know that if this were to be spread, the face of the Lao Yang family that she maintained would be ruined. Yang Zhen bet right. Ah Nai. Get back to your room. Zhao was embarrassed by Lao San in front of everyone and had no choice but to vent her anger on Yang Zhen's head as she struggled to find her son whom she valued the most. Yang Zhen stuck out his tongue and ran into the room in a flash. Sister. Where did the cat come from? Yang Yu gently hugged the little kitten, feeling a bit helpless. Seeing Yang Zhen enter the room, it seemed like she saw a savior. I picked it up in the snow last night, and from now on, the three of us will depend on each other. Yang Zhen took the kitten and took advantage of the bright morning light to see its appearance clearly. Her eyes were fully open, and there was a thin layer of black fur on her body, flapping her short limbs. Her belly was bulging, and her pink tongue occasionally licked the corners of her mouth. It looks like Yuanbao. It's exactly the same. But this little guy is much healthier than Yuanbao when he was a child, able to eat and sleep. You can call him Yuan Bao, okay? Ahem, it seemed to understand, and its paw bloomed and responded. Ah, sister. It's so smart. Yang Yu was amazed. She had been helping a sister with her work since she was sensible. She was busy all day and had no chance to play like other children. This would show that Yuan Bao seemed to understand people's words. Suddenly, she felt a sense of responsibility. As Sister A said, she will take good care of Yuan Bao in the future. But if others knew about the existence of Yuan Bao, they would definitely drive it away. Yang Yu's mood suddenly sank, and the family didn't have a good face towards her and her sister, let alone the addition of a small animal. Do you know where there are branches or vines? I know. I went to the back mountain to cut pigsty before, and there were vines and grass there. Okay. Don't worry. Sister A will protect you. Yang Zhen stroked Yang Yu's head with heartache. The little girl is already 8 years old, and her physique is not as strong as the 6-year-old cousin of the third uncle's family, which shows how powerful the little girl has been honed. What are you doing? You haven't come out yet to feed the pigs. Zhao worked hard in the stove for half a day, and the pigs in the pigsty began to hum. She came out to urge Yang Zhen, throwing the broom and dustpan in her hand heavily on the ground, as if venting her dissatisfaction with losing face early in the morning. Yang Zhen rolled her eyes. She only wanted the horses to work, but didn't give them grass to eat. There's no such cheap thing in the world. She's not the same as her original self, just letting others compete. Yang Yu was worried about Yang Zhen's health and said, Sister. You still have injuries, I'll go feed the pigs. She was about to put on her shoes. No need. I'll go and go back. This winter, the most important thing is to survive first. Grandparents, uncles, and aunts don't want to exploit her labor force and enjoy it. There are so many big men with good hands and feet, all sleeping soundly on the Kong, letting 2 thin and weak little girls work. It's really a case of abuse. Ah, nigh. I'll go to the back mountain to see if there's any wild vegetables to eat. Yang Zhen had a good attitude, wrapped herself in a bulky cotton jacket, bent down to pick up the bamboo basket under the eaves, shook off the snow on top, and carried it out of the door. The morning sun slowly rose, and the snow on the road was already up to my ankles. Every household lit up their stoves to prepare for cooking, and smoke came out one by one. Yang Zhen made 7 turns and 8 turns to reach the back mountain, which is an independent low mountain located next to a large field at the end of the village. Yang Zhen didn't have breakfast. Although the road was not far, she walked panting and sweating profusely, but her body felt a little lighter. As the sun rose in the back of the mountain, the snow began to melt and vines sprouted their heads. Yang Zhen picked up 7 or 8 of them and estimated that they could make a cat cage. He then flipped open the stones and picked up a few dried wild vegetables, which he put together with the vines into the bamboo basket. Vines are not as thick as branches, nor are they as flammable as branches, so wild vines are not popular in winter, which is why Yang Zhen was able to pick up leeks. Yang Zhen leaned on a wooden stick and slowly descended the mountain. At the foot of the mountain, a small river had frozen over. She stared at the ice for a while and continued walking back. Isn't this a girl from the Yang family? I heard you were injured yesterday. Why did you start working again early in the morning? Passing by a house, an aunt was sweeping the snow with a headscarf when she saw Yang Zhen, who was dressed in thin clothes, kindly asked. This question doesn't matter. As soon as Yang Zhen heard this, she coughed violently and shook her head. Her aunt was startled and quickly helped her sit on the stone pier at the door. Cough, cough, cough. I just felt weak under my feet, thanks to my aunt. I didn't fall off a big horse. Cough, cough, cough. Yang Zhen's voice was faint and weak, as if she was about to faint. She raised a well-behaved smile and thanked her aunt. Auntie glanced around and saw wild vegetables in the bamboo basket behind her. Just as she was about to speak, she said, "I believe Auntie also knows about my family's situation. I can only do my best to help Grandpa and Grandma with some work, but I injured my head again yesterday." The little girl's face was flushed with blood, and her blood-red mouth was terrifying. At this moment, she was deeply hurt by worry, which made her heart tense. "I'm much better now. Thank you, Auntie. I'm going home now, otherwise I might have to have lunch." Zhen thanked again, holding Auntie's hand trembling as she stood up and walked home. Sun is a kind-hearted person, and she has heard of some grudges and disagreements in the Yang family's situation over the years. She didn't want to interfere in other people's household affairs, but the pitiful little face of the young girl kept appearing in front of her. Finally, she couldn't help but tell her good friends about this matter. Chapter 6. Playing Together. You are listening at Novel FUL. Audio. Really fake. Even if they were injured, they still had to work. Zhao Shi is too cruel, right? After all, Yang Zhen is also her own granddaughter. Even if she has a prejudice against Yang Lauer, she has been away for so many years. The great hatred should not be retaliated against the two little girls. Zhou Shi couldn't stand Zhao Shi's pretense and even sneered at these shameful things done by someone over 50 years old. "I've seen it too. That girl's body is already thin like paper, that basket is so big." She gestured with her hand, "There's still cloth wrapped around her head. I'm really afraid she'll collapse when the wind blows." "Ah." That girl lowered her head and walked away when she saw someone before. "I think she's also feeling uncomfortable today, so she asked me to help." Sun said indignantly. Zhao Shi really committed wrongdoing. Even after sparring the little girl like this, she is not afraid of going to hell. With every word you say, Yang Zhen's pitiful image of being injured and still working has been successfully laid. There is always someone in this world who sympathizes with the weak, as long as their heart is not made of stone. Yang Zhen specifically circled around the village on her return journey, allowing as many people as possible to see her pitiful appearance. In a deserted place, there was a gust of wind under her feet, and she hurried slowly to catch up with breakfast. After breakfast, Yang Zhen chopped the wild vegetables into sections, sprinkled them into the swill, and poured them into the pig trough. The intense coughing sound caught the attention of several people. "Sister. Are you okay?" Yang Yu asked with concern as she entered the room. Yang Zhen shook his head and hooked the corners of his mouth, saying, "Maybe in a few days you won't have to work anymore." He then took out the steamed buns that had just passed away from his pocket and asked Yang Yu to feed Yuanbao something. He then took out the rattan from the corner of the wall and sat on the haystack, enduring the pain in his hands, starting to weave a cat cage. "Isn't Zhao good at saving face? Then she'll let her face be revealed together for others to see. We need to completely solve the problem that the Yang family has been forcing us to work. She can be kind and kind to help, but she cannot be forced to work." While contemplating his own path ahead, he relied on his impression and his subordinates kept moving. In no time, a simple cat cage was woven, with no foundation, only a lid and surrounding sides. The vines he brought back were just enough. She placed the cat cage in the corner of the wall and put the ingot in the cage when there was no one inside, to prevent it from running out and being seen by the Yang family. Yang Zhen was called out to sweep snow. Only Yang Zhongren wore a fur hat and was scraping snow with a shovel. Yang Zhen took the broom standing by the wall and began to sweep slowly. "Uncle, where are Uncle San and the others?" Yang Zhen seemed to ask unintentionally. "I'm reviewing my homework indoors." "Ah, in this world, everything is inferior, except for high education. It's okay for outsiders to think so. How come there are still 3, 6, or 9 levels of seniority? You and your third uncle are both their sons, so you're really a good big brother." Yang Zhen lightly set fire to Yang Zhongren's heart and then walked away to sweep other places. She saw that Yang Zhongren's snowplowing action was noticeably more rude. "That's great. It's interesting when the speaker has no intention and the listener has a heart. The snow in the yard was swept into piles, piled up against the wall. After Yang Zhen returned to the house, Yang Yu lay on the haystack playing with Yuanbao, while his foolish cousin and cousin were playing in the yard. Do you want to go out and play with them? Yang Yu thought for a while, lowered her head, and continued teasing Yuanbao. Forget it. She will be bullied, she can't beat them. They have parents and grandparents to support them. Sister A is already tired enough, and she can't cause any more trouble for her. Yang Zhen thought she was afraid of the cold and didn't think much. Suddenly, a fist-sized snowball smashed open the already dilapidated window, and a series of snowballs were thrown onto the ground, even on the haystack. Yuanbao was so scared that he meowed and hid in Yang Yu's arms. You go hide in the corner, I'll go out and take a look. Yang Zhen quickly piled up the blankets in the corner, wrapped a few layers of cloth strips in his hands, and turned around to go out. The foolish cousin was tall and was swinging his arm to throw the snowball towards Yang Zhen. Yang Zhen dodged sideways and saw that the snow pile he had just swept had turned into a mess, the ground was in chaos, and the two people not far away were still making piercing laughter towards Yang Zhen. Despite this, there was not a single adult coming out to take care of the house. Since that was the case, she did a good deed and educated them for Uncle San. You want to have a snowball fight? Let's play together. Before the two people across from him could react, Yang Zhen suppressed the pain in his hands and also collected 2 snowballs, throwing them at his cousins. Yang Zhen pays special attention to health preservation in modern times. Although he cannot do vigorous exercise in his daily life, he still does the 8-section brocade yoga and 8-su exercises at regular intervals. Occasionally, he also plays table tennis with friends to relax. The benefits of exercise are now evident. I saw 2 snowballs in front and 1 behind, as if they had long eyes, flying straight towards their heads. Pa! Pa! Yang Song and Yang Shu had not yet reacted, but their faces were icy cold. They were momentarily stunned, their lips twitching, as if they were smiling. Let's play together. Yang Zhen issued a sincere and enthusiastic invitation. While the two of them bent down to pinch the snow, Yang Zhen's figure was agile, dodging back and forth. Without time to pinch it into a snowball, he grabbed a handful of snow randomly and skillfully stuffed it into the back of their necks. The scene was chaotic for a while, and the snow they threw also scattered and accidentally injured each other. When Yang Zhen's snowball hit their heads again, his cousin Yang Shu couldn't help but shrink his mouth and burst into tears. His cousin Yang Song raised his hand and grabbed his neck, saying, "Cool, cool." The people in the room only leaned out when they heard crying. Sure. Who did this? Third Aunt Qian felt angry as she touched Yang Shu's cold and damp clothes. It's a loser. Wow, she cried as she reached out her finger to Yang Zhen. As everyone was leaving, Yang Zhen had already propped up his head and leaned weakly against the wall. At this moment, when he heard Yang Shu's words, he sarcastically pursed his lips. What does a 6-year-old child know? He must have been learning from those adults by opening and closing his mouth and losing money. I saw my cousin and cousin playing in the snow when I went out. I just wanted to play together, but for some reason, the two of them stopped fighting and started fighting each other. I wanted to go fight, but I had a terrible headache. You can't wrongly accuse me. Yang Zhen, who was a handsome current affairs officer, lowered her posture and began to plead. From both emotional and rational perspectives, everyone had doubts about Yang Zhen's words, but without evidence, they could only be left dumbfounded. Qian Shi whispered to Yang Shu, who was still sobbing, I told you not to play with fools. I won't listen. Upon hearing Qian's words, Lu became unhappy and helped the foolish Yang Song scrape the snow off his neck while loudly saying, Don't come out and be bullied. You're a fool, how can you compare to a shrewd person? As the two daughter-in-law were about to start arguing, Zhao pretended to cough and said to her eldest daughter. Law Lu, all right. What are you arguing about with this child? Then she said to her third daughter. Law Qian, what are you arguing about with this idiot? Why don't you go in and change my baby grandson's wet clothes? Chapter 7. Bagua. You are listening at novel FUL. Audio. Young Zhen was enjoying watching the play and felt Zhao's gaze. He quickly obediently smiled and didn't speak, supporting his forehead as he entered the room. It's none of her business how dogs bite them later on. In the next 2 days, young Zhen would either tremble and carry a bamboo basket on his back, or sway and carry some water. He would take 1 step and take 3 steps to rest at the entrance of the village, while also chatting with his enthusiastic aunts. In the 12th lunar month, there are many rural customs, and there is a grand gathering in Yanxi Prefecture on the 18th day of the 12th lunar month. Rural people usually don't go to the city without any important matters. Chinese New Year is an annual event, and every household will rush to the city on the day of the big market to buy New Year's goods. The people with ox carts in the village have been waiting for someone under the big locust tree at the entrance of the village early in the morning, and they can still earn a few coins by hitchhiking. Zhao pursed her hair with a comb and said, Lu. Why are you still rubbing around? Hurry up and leave. Zhao, with a basket hanging on her arm, took her eldest daughter. Law Lu to the bottom of the locust tree and met people, but no one paid attention to her. The crowd whispered in groups of 3 or 5, and as Zhao looked over, they quickly stopped talking. Mother. What's going on in the village? Why are they all avoiding us? Lu also felt the strange atmosphere and asked Zhao for advice. Zhao gave her a white glance, stupid born. How did I know? Lu shut up in frustration. Everyone on the ox cart was talking and laughing, but as soon as Zhao spoke, the scene turned cold. She had to give up and remain silent all the way. When they arrived at the capital, everyone dispersed to buy New Year's goods. Sister-in-law. What's wrong with them? Zhao grabbed a sister-in-law of the same family who she usually had a good relationship with and asked a question. Even if you don't like that girl Yang Zhen, you should take it easy to tease her. Now everyone in the village knows she's hurt her head, and you even forced her to work as a little girl. Her sister-in-law tugged at Zhao's sleeve and whispered a message to her. Those long tongues are so kind-hearted. It's not up to them to talk nonsense about my family's affairs. Zhao sure said with a black face, indignant. It must have been those people who were jealous of her own family that made up her mind. Her own granddaughter can do whatever she wants, wherever it's up to them to take advantage of the situation. Even if you don't think about anything else, you have to think about your family's loyalty and etiquette. What is the most important thing for a scholar? Its reputation. You haven't separated your families yet, and you understand the principle of 1 prosperity and 1 loss. My sister-in-law in the same family hates iron but cannot turn into steel. The clan concept in this era is quite strong, and it can be said that one person gains the glory of the entire clan. Before leaving, she was only reminded and instructed by her husband. When she met the Zhao family, she must be advised not to hesitate, so as not to tarnish the reputation of Yang Zhongli as a scholar. Zhao's weakness was that Yang Zhongli was studying and wanted to argue a few words, but he kept silent with a dark face. Let that dead girl survive for a few days. When the wind blows, let's see if she doesn't give her a long lesson. Sister-in-law. Thank you for telling me. I know now. There's really no one at home to work anymore. We can't let big men do some pig-feeding and firewood work, can we? Zhao sneered, giving her fellow sister-in-law peace of mind. The sister-in-law of the same family noticed her intention to restrain herself and changed her seriousness from before, returning to her usual way of talking and laughing. The 2 sisters went shopping together happily. The Yang family courtyard fell silent, and Yang Yu played with Yuan Bao on the haystack. Yang Zhen felt lost in thought. According to the plan, her tragic situation will soon be known to everyone, and it would be best for Zhao to do as she wishes and let her recover peacefully. She carefully looked at the chilblains on herself and Yang Yu, leaving scars, indicating that the old wounds were not healed, and new wounds were added. The original body and Yang Yu were really lucky. The sound of playfulness came from the three-room, and Yang Zhen suddenly had an idea. Yang Zhen put on a single shoe and knocked on the door of the third room. Who? Yang Shu's impolite voice came out from inside the room. Cough cough cough, uncle and aunt, it's me. After a while, Yang Zhongli finally opened the door. As soon as the cotton door curtain opened, a burst of heat surged, and Yang Zhen seemed unaware, only asking what she wanted to ask. Yang Zhen smiled obediently and said, "Is Uncle San busy reviewing his homework?" Yang Zhongli didn't react for a moment and spoke hesitantly. "Ah, yes, I'm reviewing my homework. Is there anything you need me for?" Yang Zhongli pulled the door curtain in his hand and didn't mean to let her in. Yang Zhen didn't get angry either and continued to smile. "I've been hurting my head these days. I heard that Uncle San has some nice books here and wants to borrow them to read." Yang Zhongli couldn't help but sneer. She even wanted to read a book even though she didn't recognize two big characters. Then he reprimanded with an elder's demeanor, "Yes. It's always good to read more books. But you can't read or understand anything. Let me show you Schuer's three-character classic." Third uncle. "Cousin, I'm starting to read a serious book. Do you have any books about social customs?" "I just read a lively book, not as knowledgeable as you, nor as intelligent as my cousin. Look." A few words made Yang Zhongli feel a bit ethereal and comfortable, and his tone naturally improved. "That's it. Come with me to the study to have a look. It is said to be the study room, which is the same room as my original father's. There is no stove in the room, and the Kong is still there. There is a straw mat on the Kong, and several stacks of books are piled up against the wall. In the middle, there is a Kong table with a lamp stand placed on it. There are scattered books spread out, and the ink on the Kong table has dried up." Yang Zhen calmly recorded the scene inside the room and had already figured out how to tidy up and decorate it for a while. Yang Zhongli brought a book over and wiped the dust off the cover with his sleeve. "This book is very rare and precious. Be careful when you read it." On the cover, it was prominently written, "Journey to Mountains and Rivers." Yang Zhen took it and flipped through it. Inside, there was an illustration. "Thank you, uncle. I'll give it back to you in 2 days." Yang Zhen returned to the miscellaneous room with a book, and Yang Yu was curious. "Sister, why did you think of reading?" Yang Zhen smiled and couldn't tell her the truth. "If you want to survive in a strange world, the first task is to understand the local rules." I had to laugh and say, "These days have been a bit boring. The weather outside is so cold, it's not suitable to go out." After finishing speaking, she began to read with hunger and thirst. During the process, she couldn't understand a single character, so she even guessed and became confused. This travelogue covered a wide range of topics, including local customs, village rules and customs, policies and regulations. After reading all of these, she finally had a clear understanding. At noon, Zhao and Lu carried large and small bags of things and returned home with a full load. The whole family gathered in the main room, and Zhao distributed items to them one by one. "Third brother. Come on. Here are your paper and ink," as the shopkeeper said. That scholar from Qizhuang passed the imperial examination using his family's paper and ink. "Thank you so much, mother. Yang Zhongli actually doesn't lack paper and ink, but don't give anything for free. Your father and boss worked hard for a year and bought a piece of cloth to make new clothes," he said, taking out the blue cloth hidden in his hand. Chapter 8. Request for a House. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Yang Zhongren said his gratitude in a muffled voice, and the old man's eyes flashed with light. He continued smoking his cigarette without saying a word. The eldest daughter.in.law and the third daughter.in.law are working hard at home, making 2 new pairs of shoes for the Chinese New Year. The 2 daughter.in.law also thanked Zhao. Come on. This is Song Air and Shu Air's dim sum. You should eat slowly. Zhao Shi took out 2 bags of dim sum, handed them to the 2 people waiting, and touched Yang Shu's head lovingly. I'm not an unreasonable person either. Although our family may not be considered wealthy, we still have more than enough. After a few days, we'll kill a pig and improve our diet for a few days. Zhao seemed like a person who was constantly summarizing at the end of the year, feeling moved by herself. She picked up a bamboo tube and took a few sips of water. Nai. Where's you and me? Yang Zhen's words were undoubtedly thunderous on the flat ground, and a few pairs of eyes brushed together as they looked over. Yang Yu was both nervous and hopeful, pulling at the corner of Yang Zhen's clothes and hiding behind her. The cotton clothes that your cousin and cousin changed into 2 years ago are still new. You and Yu can take them and wear them. He said, looking at Lu and Qian. You two will look for the cotton clothes later. Nai. This is not appropriate. Yang Zhen's eyes did not shrink at all, and she did not intend to shrink. For seasons and 12 months a year, Yu and I have done less work than any other family member. It's Chinese New Year, and everyone deserves credit for their achievements. It's not appropriate for us alone. According to her previous nature, she would not refute, and even if she was extremely aggrieved, she would only hide and secretly shed a few tears. She is a hard-working and resentful injustice. She knew her situation and didn't waste much time talking. She only hoped to find a good husband and break away from her unhappy family of origin. But this Yang Zhen is not that Yang Zhen. Do you want to rebel? This family can't accommodate you anymore. If you don't want to wear it, don't wear it. With a loud bang, Zhao threw the bamboo tube in her hand towards Yang Zhen, who was quick-witted and pulled Yang Yu away. The crowd was frightened by Zhao's sudden outburst, and Yang Yu tugged at Yang Zhen's sleeve, signaling her not to say anything. Yang Zhen walked slowly over, bent down to pick up the bamboo tube, and placed it in front of Zhao, with a smile even more pronounced. Nai, don't be angry. I just want to ask. You and I have been waking up every day these days. Can we move back to my dad's house and move out after the Chinese New Year and Spring Festival? I thought Yang Zhen's words were bold enough just now, but I didn't expect there were even more jaw-dropping words. Yang Zhen originally intended for Su Shutu, but the whole family bullied others too much, so she didn't pretend to be filial anymore. That's my study, not your father's room anymore. Young Zhongli was shocked by his niece's transformation and quickly regained his voice. They have a lot of things in their room, and have already moved the cabinets from the original room to their own room. When it's cold, he reads in his own room, and only when it's hot do he go to the study. Although Uncle San's book is left, we won't move. We just need to sleep on the Kong. Yang Zhen looked at Yang Zhongli with a gentle and firm tone. Reverse. Reverse. The second unfilial son gave birth to an enemy to torture me. The house that your father didn't even want, you said you want it now. Get out of here. Zhao threw the bamboo tube again. She was already quite dissatisfied with Yang Zhen's embarrassing behavior in front of the villagers, and Yang Zhen's words now undoubtedly added fuel to the fire. The bamboo tube fell apart without being carried. Since Nai doesn't want us to live, you and I should go down early to find my parents. Perhaps it's because we've been hurting our heads lately. We always dream of black and white impermanence coming to claim my life at night. Sigh. If the Yang family freezes to death and damages their reputation, then third uncle won't be able to take the scholar entrance exam. My life and death are all small matters, and it would be a sin to delay third uncle's great future. After finishing these words, Yang Zhen ignored everyone's reactions and pulled Yang Yu out of the hall. Behind him were Zhao's curses and everyone's voices of persuasion. Yang Zhen hooked his lips, creating a touching scene of maternal kindness and filial piety. She is not the real Yang family and does not need that cold and selfish blood relationship. Ah, sister. What should I do if she gets angry? Ah, you was very worried. She and our sister had actually gotten used to sharing things before the new year without their own share, so they felt a little aggrieved. But our sister didn't know why she dared to say those things to Ah Nai today. No problem. Remember. You'll get sick tomorrow morning and won't be able to get out of bed. But I'm not sick. Yang Zhen looked at Yang Yu's big black and white eyes and whispered, "Do you believe in Sister A?" Yang Yu kept nodding busily. Then listen to Sister A. Yang Yu seemed to understand, as Sister A seemed to be doing something big. She would listen. Zhao was so angry that she didn't cook lunch for lunch. Lu made do with it and asked everyone in the house to bring their food back to eat. No one came to call Yang Zhen and her sister. Yang Zhen knew that he had already torn his skin with Zhao Shi, and he only needed to add a spark to get back to his original father's house. After noon, the sun shone warm on me, and the yard was quiet. Yuanbao's belly has been round and plump these past few days, and it seems that he has become much more energetic. Yang Yu didn't have lunch, his stomach was growling with hunger, and he wrinkled his face while playing with Yuanbao. Pack up. Let's take Yuanbao out for a walk. Yang Zhen took out a wrinkled net from the corner and urged Yang Yu to put on her shoes in a soft voice. At home, Yang Yu was also hungry. She put on her shoes and stuffed little Yuanbao into her arms, then followed Yang Zhen out the door. The two of them followed the path to the southwest corner of the village by the river, which was covered in thick ice. The southwest corner of Yangjiazhuang is the ancestral temple and village school of the Yang family. Due to the small number of students, after the first snowfall, the village school closed its annual school, which is known as winter vacation in modern times. There are still a few days until the day of ancestor worship, and now there are almost no people. The place was flat and open, and Yang Yu put down the Yuanbao. It was like a happy little mouse, jumping and running around, but in no time it ran to the ice. It lowered its head and sniffed around, stopped in a grassy area, and began to meow. Yang Zhen looked at its movements as if guessing something. Are you trying to tell me that you can fish here? Meow meow. Yuanbao looked a bit excited, with yellow-green eyes shining like sparkling gemstones under the sun. To confirm his guess, Yang Zhen picked up a stone and began to smash it. Yang Yu also squatted down and helped to smash it together. In no time, the two of them worked together to break open a hole with a diameter of about 20 centimeters. Yang Zhen shook open the fishing net and carefully lowered it. In no time, the fishing net began to tremble and Yang Zhen quickly put it away. There were two struggling fish in the net, about 4 or 5 inches long, looking slightly fleshy. Great! Sister! We caught fish online. Yuanbao is so amazing. Yang Yu hasn't enjoyed the childlike fun for a long time. Netfish is already rare for her, and she is very excited. Chapter 9. Go to Li Zheng's home. You are listening at novel FUL.audio. Yang Zhen carried the fishing net and walked to the dry grassland on the side. He picked up a stone and knocked the fish unconscious. Then, he broke a sharp branch and cut open his stomach. He went to the river to clean the fish, then drilled into the wood and started a fire. He set up a frame to grill the fish. A set of flowing movements almost startled Yang Yu's chin. It seems that sister didn't know these things before these days, due to the strong smell and lack of seasoning of fish and shrimp, as well as the presence of thorns and inconvenience in eating. There is no leisure time for farmers to slowly savor the taste. Therefore, Yang Yu's interest in eating fish is novel. She was still daydreaming when Yang Zhen smiled and handed over a fish. Try it. A fish with bones removed was placed in front of Yang Yu. Although no seasoning was added, the plump fish meat emitted a fragrant aroma, and Yang Yu didn't have time to think about it before taking it to his mouth. Eat slowly. Be careful. Yang Zhen instructed Yang Yu while placing the fish head on the ground, letting Yuan Bao also have some meat and smell. The sun began to tilt westward, and the two of them barely filled their stomachs before returning home with their ingots. Young family girl. Are you okay with your injury? A well-dressed woman with a plain silver hairpin on her head greeted her proactively. Yang Zhen looked bewildered. Sister. Sister. This is Li Jingjia's aunt. Yang Yu reminded her in a timely and low voice. Upon hearing Yang Yu's reminder, Yang Zhen disregarded the pain of frostbite on her face and raised a big smile. Auntie, you're busy. Tian was a bit surprised by her reply. Everyone said that the second wife of the Yang family seemed to have changed since she fell on her head, and as expected. In the past, when greeting her, she would only nod lightly, lower her head and hurriedly leave. A few women would sit together gossiping, perhaps because the girl was old and felt that her face was frostbitten and unsightly, feeling a bit insecure. She didn't socialize with girls of the same age in the village, lowered her head, hunched her back, and even changed her heart after falling her head. This is a joke they're joking about, little did they know that there was actually a different core inside. Yang Zhen didn't pay any attention to the wound on his face now. He greeted people openly and said hello, changing his previous isolation and becoming bright and lively. Hey! What are you two sisters doing? Tian regained consciousness and smiled and exchanged pleasantries. The weather is nice today. Come out and sunbathe. The wound can also heal faster. Yang Zhen learned that Li was a wealthy family in the village, in charge of all the affairs of the village. In order to retrieve the house of the original owner's father, Li was an essential assistance, but he was unable to be too enthusiastic for a while, which caused suspicion. Tian also went to the capital to go to the market this morning, and had some understanding of the affairs of Yang Zhen's family. At this moment, she hesitated to speak, wanting to say something, but then stopped. Even if Master Qing Tian came, it would be difficult to stop the household chores. Moreover, she had no position to take care of others' household affairs. Besides, her own daughter is also solitary and often lives indoors. She is almost 18 and there is no matchmaker to propose her marriage yet. Every time the family talks about her marriage, she cries and makes a fuss. Her heart hurts so much that she has to give up. Auntie, did Sister Baoni go to the grand gathering in the city today? Yang Yu asked. Tian sighed and said, she's inside. If you have time, you can go find her to play. Yang Yu nodded busily. After separating from the Tian family, Yang Zhen was curious and said, you're talking about Baoni. Yang Yu sighed like a young adult. Sister Baoni is the youngest girl in the family, with 3 older brothers on top. However, Sister Baoni is afraid to go out because she has a birthmark on her face and often stays inside. Yang Zhen nodded clearly, lost in thought. As soon as he dozed off, the heavens brought a pillow. The reason why Yang Yu met Yang Baoni was because when she was cutting pigsty, her companion's child talked about Yang Baoni and mocked her for being a face monster. Although Yang Yu didn't know what justice was, she still spoke up and stopped her. We're talking behind the scenes about others being bad. As a result, she was ridiculed for a while. When she fell behind them, she met Yang Baoni strolling at the foot of the mountain, and the two of them looked at each other with a smile. Later, she occasionally went to see Yang Baoni and talked to her to relieve her boredom. At that time, she even told her sister, who praised her for doing well. Yang Zhen raised an eyebrow. She seemed to know where the breakthrough was. The two of them returned home and had grilled fish in the afternoon, so they didn't go to the main house for dinner. The sisters were wrapped in quilts and shivered with cold. Little Yuan Bao was sleeping beside Yang Zhen because of a layer of plush fur. Zhao's fierce curses came from the hall again, and Yang Zhen couldn't understand how it sounded like an enemy, even though he was his biological son. Zhao had always been resentful of Yang Zhen's inaction, but she was too afraid to take the risk of her third son's reputation. She had no choice but to change her focus and shout in an unpleasant tone, Yang Yu. Get out and work. Cough cough cough. Cough cough cough. Ah nigh. Ah, you coughed badly and started to heat up last night. Can you please hire a doctor? Yang Zhen leaned against the door frame, shaking and speaking solemnly. Zhao rolled her eyes wide and cursed, enemies. She took care of all the household chores and left with a bucket. Yang Zhen looked at her receding figure and shook her head. Poor people must have something to hate. The young and strong old men in the family were eating ready-made food and lying comfortably flat. She couldn't bear to give any guidance and offered it as a lump of gold. Yang Zhen and Yang Yu sneaked to the river again and let Yuan Bao out to take a sniff. Yuan Bao lived up to expectations and meowed towards a place. As expected, Yang Zhen caught more fish today than yesterday, totaling 4. The two of them had limited stomachs, so they grilled 2 fish with Yuan Bao to eat. The remaining 2 were tied up with hay and carried to Li Zheng's house. Auntie. Is Baoni at home? You have come. Have you eaten yet? There are still some donuts in the kitchen. Tian Shi came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands and enthusiastically letting Yang Zhen's sisters in. Auntie, here. Yang Zhen handed the fish to Tian Shi. I wish you had come to see Baoni. What else do you have? Come into the room quickly. Your uncle and his uncle have just finished eating and are talking in the main room. Tian Shi hung the fish on the wooden rack outside the kitchen and politely greeted the sisters to enter the room. In the hall, a spirited middle-aged man was happily comforting a 2 or 3-year-old child, while a girl with a birthmark on her face and a young woman wearing a bun were talking. Seeing the 2 sisters, everyone stopped. Baoni. Zhen girl has come to see you. Take your room. Talk to your peers. Young Baoni was a little surprised. She and Yang Yu had some intersection, but she and Yang Zhen were not even nodding friends, but also listened to Tian's words and took sisters to her room. Young Baoni's room has a strong feminine atmosphere. There is a solid wood table and cabinet facing the door, with a copper mirror on top and some small boxes next to it. On the right side of the door, there is a shelf bed with curtains hanging on it. It looks soft and warm, and Yang Zhen's eyes are straight. Different people have different lives. Yang Yu went to the corner of the wall to find 2 chairs and sat down with Yang Zhen. Chapter 10. Young Baoni's Birthmark. You are listening at Novel FUL. Audio. Yesterday I saw my aunt and talked about you, so we came to see you. Yang Zhen broke the silence of the 3 of them. Young Baoni covered her hair, trying to cover the birthmark on her cheek. Yang Zhen looked at her movements and felt a bit amused. Those who didn't know thought she had done something shameful and embarrassed to see others. It's just a birthmark. Are those rouge on your table? Yang Zhen looked at the small square box on the table and asked directly. Yang Baoni followed her gaze and felt a little embarrassed. She blushed slightly and nodded. Yang Yu gently tugged at Yang Zhen's sleeve, indicating that she should not mention Yang Baoni's sadness. Yang Zhen doesn't have the time to worry about the sensitive thoughts of the young girl now. She just wants to make a quick decision and ask Li Zheng to come forward and return to the house. Otherwise, if it goes on for a long time, not to mention the ointment prescribed by the village doctor, even if the great Luo immortal comes, she will have a bad face. Yang Zhen walked over to the table without being invited, picked up a small carved copper box with a bright red paste-like object inside. She placed it under her nose and smelled it, which tasted like jasmine and should be mouth-fat. Yang Zhen's impolite behavior made Yang Baoni frown. Yang Yu was a bit puzzled and had to help. Sister Baoni, don't take it amiss. Sister A has never seen these things before. She should be a bit curious. Yang Yu's voice became quieter and quieter as she spoke. Yang Zhen looked at the small box on the table and saw that there was a powder, sure dye, and it seemed like a beautiful girl. Yang Zhen. What do you want to do? Yang Baoni finally couldn't help but burst out, this person is so impolite. Yang Zhen chuckled lightly and said, have you ever tried to cover a birthmark with powder, but it didn't work. Young Baoni suddenly blew up her hair. What are you going to do? She didn't dislike Yang Zhen's ugly face, which was swollen like a mantu. How could there be such a thick-skinned person? Which girl doesn't love beauty? I don't want to do anything. I just want you to take a good look at yourself. Yang Zhen pulled Yang Baoni, who was somewhat resistant, and sat in front of the bronze mirror. The two people in the mirror are vastly different. Yang Baoni has beautiful eyebrows and eyes, smooth and delicate skin, and 2 tassels of pearl jade are pinned on her head. Although it cannot compare to the precious pearl jade headwear that Yang Zhen has seen in modern times, it is also the most precious pearl jade headwear that Yang Zhen has seen since coming here for so long. At this moment, Yang Zhen finally saw his own appearance clearly. His eyebrows and eyes were delicate, and his face was covered in dense small incisions, swollen and red. He looked more like an 18-year-old girl than a refugee fleeing from famine. Yang Baoni didn't know what medicine Yang Zhen was selling in her gourd. She reached out to block the birthmark on her face and was forcefully pulled off by Yang Zhen. Instead of covering it with powder, it's better to turn waste into treasure and display it beautifully with a large square float. Don't stand and talk without hurting your back. Hey, what are you doing? Yang Baoni was shocked. Yang Zhen picked up the rabbit hair fine brush on the table, dipped it in red lipstick, and said, I'll help you turn waste into treasure. Close your eyes. Yang Baoni closed her eyes, half believing and half doubting, as she looked at her seriousness. The birthmark on Yang Baoni's face is only as big as her thumb print, which is bright red. Yang Zhen thought the birthmark was so big when she heard Yang use words before, but she didn't expect it to be so big. She always laments and complains every day. She really can't understand the thoughts of these little girls skilled in using a rabbit hair fine pen to draw a camellia flower on the birthmark, just enough to completely cover it, and then applied powder on the face to brighten it, briefly outlining the eyebrows of Yuan Shan Dai. Yang Baoni has good skin foundation and a smooth facial shape, without the need for too much heavy decoration. Alright. Yang Baoni carefully opened her eyes and a bright camellia bloomed on her cheek. Is this my birthmark? Yeah. I said turn waste into treasure. Yang Zhen put down his mouth grease and rabbit hair pen and said softly. Yang Baoni turned her face left and right, repeatedly observing her face. It seemed that she had not used too much makeup powder, but she seemed to be much more energetic. She raised her hand to touch it, then quickly withdrew her hand, unwilling to touch the flowers. Yang Baoni wanted to cry and laugh, Mom. Dad. Big brother and sister. Lol. Come on. Hula hula, a few people rushed into the room. Can you help me check? Is the birthmark covering it? Yang Baoni raised her voice, feeling a little excited, afraid that the bronze mirror might be blurry, and she looked off. Ah. Who drew this? Your hands are so skillful. This flower is vivid and just covers the birthmark. Tianshi walked up to carefully observe and couldn't help but ask aloud. It was painted by Yang Zhen. Sister. You can use this method to go out in the future. Yang Baoni's sister. Law Wu Sanyang exclaimed in surprise. Because Yang Baoni was happy and the whole family was happy, they became even more passionate about Yang Zhen and Yang Yu. Yang Baoni took Yang Zhen's hand and said, How could your hand be like this? She was surprised. She is spoiled and pampered at home, and all the work at home is done by her parents and brother. She doesn't touch the spring water with her fingers. When she saw Yang Yu with many scars, she thought it was because she was young and touched water in winter. Unexpectedly, Yang Zhen, a young girl, had frostbitten wounds on her hands and face. Yang Zhen gently withdrew his hand, feeling a bit embarrassed, and looked around. It's nothing. It's just freezing. Don't you have a stove at home? Yang Baoni looked like an innocent baby. Yang Zhen really wants to shout, Do you think everyone is like you? Li Zheng and Tianshi obviously knew the discord in Yang Zhen's family and felt uncomfortable. Baoni, I bought you dim sum yesterday. Oh, yes, yes. Young Baoni was so interrupted that she turned to the bedside cabinet and took out dim sum to share with everyone. Yang Yu has never seen dim sum before. Zhao Shi bought it for her cousin and younger cousin before, but never asked her to taste it. Now, when she saw the delicate petal-shaped dim sum in her palm, she burst into tears. He intimidated everyone in the circle and said, "How good this is. Auntie, don't take it amiss. I'm sure you all know a little about the situation at home. I really don't know how my parents are being unfilial and obedient to my parents. Anyway, Ayu and I are going to see them soon." Yang Zhen said, tears streaming down like broken beads. While crying, she suppressed her tears and lifted her sleeves to wipe away her tears, turning her face red and somewhat terrifying. The sisters cried out of breath, but Yang Baoni was worried. Otherwise, friendships between girls come quickly. She just thought Yang Zhen was impolite, but now she thinks Yang Zhen is good but pitiful. Yang Zhen pretended to be strong and said he was going to take Yang Yu home. All right. Stay for lunch at noon. Li Zheng Yang Yuanshan said, "Delang, go to your uncle Zhongren's house and say something." Yang Chong, the eldest son of the Yang family, turned around and walked out. In the kitchen, Tian and Yang Yuanshan chattered incessantly. "You said this is causing trouble now. The children have all been wronged like that. And they are also pitiful. These old couple are too unscrupulous. The money brought back by loyalty and righteousness is no less than that of the eldest and third.